Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Prajna. It's a webinar series. This is a webinar series called, it's a collaboration between our Pune affiliate and SWE. With that, I'd like to start off with the Pune affiliate for the work that they've done on Prajna. In particular, Joshin and John Deere and Pritika from Black and Beach. So thank you all for all the work you've done on this. It's been a great series so far, and we look forward to having more of these webinars and success that you've started. Welcome to all of you that have joined us. I see faces in the registration list, and I also see a lot of new faces. So we're really happy that a lot of you are joining us. And we hope to reach out to as we move forward. Swati is our featured speaker today, and she'll be speaking and basically addressing the mental impact of the current pandemic. None of us have ever seen anything like this before, and certainly the fact and the challenge this present, and any hints or any advice that we can get on how to better manage our lives changed is always helpful. And I like to think of SWE as a community of like-minded people that are all working together to try to help each other. And I think events like today lend themselves to that idea. So with that, and again, I welcome all of you and appreciate the fact that you've taken time out of your day to attend this conference. As we move forward, please feel free about types of webinars you'd like to see in the future, or any other ideas on how we can interact as a group. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Sunaina, who's out of our Chennai office, and she'll tell you a little bit about some of the other activities that SWE, and then we'll move forward to Swati after that. So thank you very much, and I'll look forward to the rest of the webinar.
Good afternoon, I'm Sunaina from SWE India team, and as Paul mentioned, a few updates from SWE India. So the FY21 Global Ambassador is open. The Global Ambassador program where SWE members have a leadership role both in their local region and there globally. This role is very important because it helps you to get skills in your local space for networking, for reaching out young girls to be interested in STEM, and also in professionals in women, especially women professionals in STEM. So if you are interested to apply for this ambassador program, please do click in the link and do apply before 30th June. We also have a free pilot program, online mentoring, where you can apply up using your LinkedIn account as a mentor or mentee. Being a mentor is an amazing experience where you get to talk with diverse students, professionals, women who are seeking career return from their break. So please do make use of this opportunity. We also have a fantastic career center where you can build a strong resume and also search for job opportunities with our team who supports SWE goals, such as advancing and successfully supporting women in STEM. Online resource from SWE is our Advanced Learning Center, where we have very valuable webinars where you can learn. There are some courses. Make use of this in your free time. That's from SWE. Thank you for taking your time for joining us in this webinar, and I hope you have a great session ahead. To Preetika to explain about this webinar.
Thank you, Sunena. Very good evening, everyone. I'm Preetika and currently serving as Vice President of Society of Women Engineers Pune affiliate. So to give you a background of SWE Pune affiliate, this was the very first affiliate in India, and we started in the year 2015. In fact, this year we are going to celebrate our 5th year anniversary on a grand scale. So you can look forward to many such sessions. So SWE Pune affiliate was founded by 6 member organizations, and today we have 200 plus members from 20 plus different organizations. Our objective is to drive activities around professional and personal development in the engineering field to demonstrate the value of diversity. Such activity is the Prajna webinar series, wherein we organize webinars on various trending topics in the field of business and technology. A Pune affiliate and now Pune affiliate initiative, which is now scaled up to a SWE India initiative. And I feel like to see this initiative scale up to this level. And I'd like to thank Paul and his team for all the support that they have been giving us all throughout. Prajna, a little about Prajna. Prajna is a very old concept in the Hindu culture, which teaches an individual to attain the highest form of wisdom in one's lifetime. This is our 4th webinar for this particular initiative, Prajna, by Jashanpreet Kaur. I'd like to thank you, Jashan. You're doing a great job in leading this initiative and organizing excellent speakers like to take us through such interesting topics. And the topic that we have chosen this time is a very interesting one, and as Paul mentioned, a very valid one in the current situation, that is mindfulness by Swati Desai. So thank you, Swati, for taking out the time and taking us through this topic. I'll now request Jashan to introduce Swati.
Hello everyone, good evening. I am Jashanpreet Kaur and I am serving as SWE Global Ambassador. I welcome you all to Mindfulness 101. Thank you for joining in. As Preetika mentioned about our initiative Prajna, today we have Dr. Swati Desai, a mental well-being practitioner with us. She is a PhD in Computer Systems Information from Anderson School of Management, UCLA, and is also a licensed psychotherapist in Los Angeles. She is a certified teacher of mindfulness and self-compassion and is also the founder of 2Meditate, which is the platform for creating a global group of mindfulness meditators. Before we jump into the session, a quick hygiene guideline to all of you. We will not entertain questions while the webinar is in progress. You may send your questions in the question tab, which is on the left-hand side of your screen, as you can see. You can type in your questions there. We will try to address as many as we can towards the end of the webinar. I hope you all are excited for today's session. So let's start. Over to you, Swati.
Thank you so much, Jashan. I'm really excited to do this session, and I'll tell you why. Women engineers, wonderful. I have a daughter who is doing her PhD in one of the biomath kind of areas, and because of that, the idea of them is very dear to my heart. So I'm very excited to be part of this. With that, now I would like to begin my session. I hope you can hear me all really well. Right, Jashan? Can you tell me, can you hear me well?
Yes, Swati, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So I would like to start my session with a story, or rather a research study. This research study was done by a PhD student in Harvard under his advisor, Gilbert, Daniel Gilbert, who is a well-known psychologist. So this student, his last name was Killingworth. what they did together was they gave iPhones to 2,250 people. The idea was that whenever the iPhone made a sound, a ping, then the person who had the iPhone was supposed to stop and answer 3 questions. Question number 1 was, what are you doing now? Number 2 was, are you paying attention to whatever you're doing now? So there was a scale when you were paying. And question number 3 was how happy you are now. 3 questions. They collected this data. Then they published a study that said wandering mind is unhappy mind. Why did they say that? What the study showed was 46.9% of the time, we are not where we are right now, wandering around. We are not paying attention to whatever we are doing. It could be some mundane activity, work-related activity. Sometimes, if we are really interested in whatever we are doing, then we can be totally there. But 46.9%, that means half of our waking life, we are not where we are. That's amazing, right? And guess what? When we are where we are supposed to be, when we are paying attention, when we are totally involved, we feel happy because we find meaning. So even if you're doing something mundane like washing dishes, if you're paying attention to whatever you are up to, you can find meaning in that. So that particular study was actually quite significant because it showed the importance of being where you are, and we are not typically where we are. So what's the antidote to that? And that's what brings me to mindfulness. Many of you probably have heard about mindfulness, may not be sure of what it means. Many of you may have heard mindfulness is awareness, because that's what the word means. That it basically means being aware, which is true. We want to be where we are right now. It is about paying attention, but it is not just about paying attention. It's a special type of attention. And I'm going to assume that many of you don't know exactly what mindfulness is about. Since we are calling it Mindfulness 101, I'm going to show you kind of like a definition of, okay? And I want to tell you how I'm going to arrange this session. I'll show you the definition of mindfulness. I'll lead you through a practice to know what mindfulness is about. And then I'm going to give you 3 tips that are based on mindfulness philosophy to deal with what we are all dealing with currently. We are all dealing with uncertainties of unprecedented nature of what is going on in our lives. And let me talk about some of the stressors you all may be experiencing. Number 1, you're working from home. So there can be a sense of social isolation because of not having the usual interaction. And some of you may be actually having old parents or your family in the house, which makes it a little easier, but it also complicates. With old parents, you may be concerned about them not being infected by this COVID-19. So there may be stress about that. When a family is together, there's too much, especially given that this is a society of women engineers. This is another thing I want to talk about, which is women do bear more responsibility of taking care of the household, those who have a family. And as a result, there's more juggling than usual. In addition, the relationship that you are in, it could be husband, boyfriend, or whoever it is, or maybe lack of relationship. Either way, that itself can become a stressful situation for some. So if you're suffering from any of these things, just know that these are normal things that could happen from lockdown. And I want to address the 3 tips that you can use to address these things, okay? So like I said, let me get you to the definition of mindfulness. Okay, I don't think you can see my screen. Can you see my screen or not yet?
No, Swati.
You can't, right? Okay, let me go here. Now you can, right?
Right.
Jashan, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to talk about the 5 characteristics of mindfulness when you're paying attention. So what are you doing? You're paying attention to of the current moment. How am I experiencing whatever it is that's happening? Okay. But you don't just pay attention. You open your attention with curiosity. You accept what comes to you, whether it is good or bad. You don't really pay too much attention to the judgments. You do judgments too seriously. You just notice the judgments and you move on. Non-reactivity is you don't take any action right away. You don't jump, you don't yell, you don't do anything. You just decide to simply observe. Instead of getting immersed in the emotions and the feelings of the moment, you learn to observe them. So that's what. So what are you doing when you are doing this? What you are really doing is you are learning about yourself. So when I say paying attention to the current moment, it's a little bit abstract, right? What does it mean, the current moment? You choose something where you want to pay attention to your breath. How is my body receiving the breath at the moment? Or you can pay attention to how is my body sense. Or you can pay attention to what feelings I'm feeling right now, or what thoughts are coming to me right now. So paying attention to that with the 5 characteristics I talked about, that allows you to learn about yourself more and more, and also learn about the moment that you're experiencing, spending the moment. If you have any question about it, you can type it in. I would love to get as many questions as you can, any doubt or anything. But right now, let's to a certain degree, and let's see where that takes us. So first, I would like to take you through a practice. When people say mindfulness, I also think about meditations, right? So yes, the way you get into the habit of observing mindfully, which you can say, how do you make your brains mindful? How do you get into the habit? Is by meditating mindfully, by practicing mindfulness meditation. It's a technique that you, and then outside of, even when you're experiencing life, you will be able to observe in the way I'm talking about. Meditate how to become mindful, but that's not the only way. There are activities you can do that also can teach you how to be mindful. Okay, so how does it reduce stress? We will get to that later, but right now let's go through a meditation practice just for a few minutes to give you a glimpse. Ask you all to do. Sit with your spinal cord straight. Otherwise, there is no need to do anything else, such as you don't need to sit on with cross legs or Padmasana or anything that you see in the pictures in the meditation pose. That is just fine, but that's not the strict requirement. So keep your spinal cord straight. Close your eyes, because that way it's easier to go towards. And I'm going to pay attention to the current experience by paying attention to the sound of you. So this is what we have decided. It's the sound. So either you can pay attention to the breath or body of feeling and of thoughts, but another thing you could do is also pay attention to the sounds around you. So I'm going to do it. So first, take a few deep breaths. And say to yourself, everything else is outside the door. Currently, let me pay attention to myself and my experience. Seeing whatever is going on. In this case, we have decided to pay attention to the sounds. Wherever you are, allow your ears to really open up to the sounds that are in your environment. And whatever sounds come to you, simply notice. Notice all these sound vibrations, sounds that are happening around you. Listen to all the minute details and subtleties of the sound. If your mind wanders around, you know that's the nature of the mind, so bring it back to the sounds. Curiosity, open it up with curiosity. Sounds bring any judgments in your mind, just notice the judgment. No need to take them too seriously. It could be some association or some memory that comes to your mind because of to these sounds, some feeling, some mood. Simply notice. No need to get up, no need to do anything. See if you can just observe, just listen in this case. And as you listen, just notice one thing. The universe is going on around us in the form of whatever sounds that are coming to you. You are in the middle of all this. You're sitting here. Your body may be making sounds to you, part of this universe. Oneness, whatever is going on around us. Common humanity. We are part of the universe. Listen, listen carefully, listen with mind. Just allow yourself gradually to calm down and attend to the noise, the voice, sounds. You're getting filled up with the sounds and also knowing that you're part of the universe. Now take a few again. Just know you're not alone, you're not lonely. Whatever it is that you're going on, the same thing is going on around you. Paying attention to how you are experiencing the sounds. And with that, now I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. To end this meditation, this really tiny meditation we just did. So mindfulness meditations are a little different than other styles of meditations where you may be reciting a mantra, you may be paying attention to the God image. There are different types of meditations. In mindfulness meditations, you pay attention to your experience, either breath or body or feelings or thoughts or sounds or something you choose about the experience. You don't change anything. You don't make anything happen. You're just being aware of how are you reacting to things. And right now, I'm just telling you the very beginning, very tip of the iceberg. But eventually, as you practice more and more, and you notice your feelings and your thoughts more and more, you will get to know how you react to things. What are your typical patterns? What are your autopilot? How you think? You learn it because you are simply observing. Okay. So now that I gave you a glimpse into what mindfulness is about, I would like to move to the 3 tips I have been saying I'm going to give you. So tip number 1, let me share my screen again. Okay, first of all, before I do that, I just have this slide to show you there have been over 6,000 research studies in starting from 1980 to examine different aspects of mindfulness. So mindfulness, the teaching comes from Buddha's original teachings, but has been used to lead our regular life, reduce stress, reduce pain, and reduce suffering. So my whole journey has been to figure out how can we use mindfulness in our daily life. Like I said, meditation is one part and activities in other parts. So there have been studies on mindfulness as well. So one of the tips I have for you, which is based on the neuroscience studies, is separate stories from facts. And what do I mean by that? Our brain, and I want to show you this image, the right hemisphere notices whatever is going on around you, just takes in the details. That's typically the one that processes emotions, intuition, spirituality, interpersonal relationship, art, music, belief, big picture. Left brain, on the other hand, it processes logic, language, analysis, organization, administration, math and science, knowledge, facts, detail. So this is a very simple, very simplified version. So any one of you knows neuroscience, please don't accuse me of oversimplifying. But roughly speaking, this is how it would happen, that when you experience, let's say you have a stressor, and right now you have plenty, your right brain will pick up whatever is going on, just details, but your left brain will make a logical. And when you are anxious, when you are afraid, then the story is going to be even scarier than the reality, typically speaking. That's why I'm calling it a story. Let me give you an example. Okay. Or should I leave it here? Yeah, I'll leave it here for a little bit. Let me give you an example. So, know this one person, I was just talking to him a few days ago. He lives in the Bay Area in the US. And in 2008, when there was another crisis, which is kind of similar to the one on right now, of course, the one we are going on right now is global, unprecedented. But in 2008, there was a financial crisis. And a lot of people lost their jobs, especially in the US. So what he was expecting next day, he was supposed to have a 15-minute meeting with his boss. And he assumed what that meant was he was going to get a pink slip, which means that he was going to get fired. All the logical points all fit together. Everybody who was going to have 15-minute meetings were getting fired. There was a lot of layoffs and financial crisis. So the story was all made in his brain. Next day in the morning, he goes in there and he finds out the meeting is canceled. And he said, what happened? So they said, the vice he was working with, when he found out that this guy was going to get canceled, he said, no, he should actually be staying here. He went all the way to the upper level and he made that this guy, Lalit, who I know, actually stayed in the job. So he was the one lucky person who was not fired, but he was so convinced he was going to get a pink slip. Like that, think about instances in your life when you have thought about whatever was, you were convinced it was going to happen. If you're afraid of something, you're convinced something bad is going to happen. And I'm not saying every time it is wrong, but you don't know. A lot of times a lot of times, even if it really happens, the way you take care of it may be different than what you imagine. So my tip number 1 is to notice just what are the facts and what are the interpretation. For example, let's say I see somebody in the corridor and they don't smile. That's the fact. When I see that, I am in my mind making up a story. Last time when we had a meeting, I was being with them, they may not have liked it, this, and then this personality is like this, he's typically, you know, like more not very friendly, whatever it is that I want to collect data points, and then I can conclude that he doesn't like me. And then I can feel a sense of restlessness or anxiety. Especially if I'm a people pleaser type of a person, I will feel very restless if I think somebody doesn't like me. But then, okay, so anyway, so what are the facts? The fact, he did not smile. I interpreted that it was because he doesn't like me and I felt bad. These are facts. But everything else, the reason why I concluded he doesn't like me, all those are interpretations. Later on, and this actually has happened to me, later on I found out that he wasn't wearing his glasses, so he wasn't really seeing anybody properly. So that is like something, think about any stressor that you have right now. Is your brain making stories? If you're afraid of something, sometimes it can be self-sabotaging because your reactions to things could be based on your fears, and then whatever you're afraid of could actually happen. Let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say you're afraid that your child is going to fail a subject. You may be so much on that child's case, you may be making that child so stressed out, so much about, you know, he's going to fail, that when he actually goes in the exam room, he may get blacked out. I'm just giving you an extreme example. So just remember, whenever you feel fear, anxiety, uncertainty, when you're facing uncertainty, make it into a question mark. Yes or no? Maybe yes, maybe no. That's tip number one. Maybe yes, maybe no. As you become more and more mindful, you notice what your typical pattern is. Some people are more afraid, some people don't react at all. Just notice your pattern and notice the stories that your brain is making. So I hope I have made myself very clear. Otherwise, again, type your questions. And I'm going to now move on, and I'm going to take you to tip number 2. So let me go to tip number 2. Okay. So on one hand, I'm asking you to move to question the stories, okay? Because we get obsessive. When we are worried, we get obsessive. So I'm asking you to question it. You don't know right now. Put it aside. Put it on a shelf. I'll worry about it later. Yes, if you need to plan something, go ahead and do the planning. But if it is something that's playing on your brain, playing in your psyche, then just decide that question mark, I'll move it on the side. And move your attention and turn towards what are your core values. Core values could be honesty, integrity, hard work, whatever it is. I'm going to mention 2 core values that I have, and I'm asking you to listen to what they mean to me, because I think it would be a very, very useful skill to have self-compassion and compassion. What does compassion mean? For many people, when you hear compassion, you think about to be nice, to have empathy, to understand the other person. But I want to actually move you into the next step to empathy that the compassion holds. Compassion is about having a sincere wish that the pain be reduced. When you see pain, when you see somebody suffering or uncomfortable or not having a good time, to have a sincere wish that their pain, their suffering be reduced, that is compassion. So what is self-compassion then? Self-compassion is compassion for you. When you are suffering, when you are anxious, when you are afraid, when you are worried, it could be any of the stressors we talked about. When that happens to you, how about you decide to give yourself the sincere wish that my pain be reduced? What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell you, I'm going to guide you through what is called a self-compassion break. Self-compassion is a huge area in itself. To have the right type of self-worth, to stop being very hard on yourself, believing that's what will make my life better. I always have to improve myself, or otherwise I'll become complacent. I always have to be tough. But research shows that's not really true. In fact, if you can motivate yourself more with self-compassion. So self-compassion serves many different purposes. So right now, I'm going to guide you through a self-compassion break. Self-compassion has three parts. Part number one is first to become aware of whatever you are experiencing and that's difficult for you. Okay. So first part is being mindful of your difficulty. Not to push it away, but to acknowledge it and let it stay there in your heart. Maybe you're not feeling that great. Maybe you're anxious. At the moment, maybe you're feeling neutral. What I'm telling you may not be true at the moment, but just imagine any stressor and you will know that it's difficult to experience it. So it's difficult. Step number two is to recognize the common humanity. We are all in it together. Or that this is life, it happens in life. If your anxiety is COVID-19 related, it will be hard for you to say this is life because this has never happened in our lives. However, some difficulty comes in. That is part of life, everybody's life. And step number three is to give yourself kindness, to give yourself a good wish that this difficulty be reduced. If you are experiencing a fear may be health related fear. What if I get sick? Or what if my parents get sick? It could be about job. The job security may be questioned, or maybe pay cut. It could be about being alone in the house, or it could be about being with the family but not managing that well. Worried about when is all this going to end? When can I travel again? It could be seeing TV and noticing other people's pain and finding difficulty watching other people's pain. Notice the difficulty. Allow yourself to be mindful and let it stay there. Then the second step is recognize the common humanity, that we are all in it together. And third, I'm going to give you a minute to think about the third part. And the third part is to give yourself kindness. Actually, close your eyes. Say to yourself, I give you kindness. I don't have to be tough on you right now. I don't have to give you too many, this is how it should be, shouldn't be. The shoulds are not the important thing. And may your pain be reduced. May you find resources to deal with your pain or suffering or discomfort or difficulty. So that is self-compassion. And compassion is to offer it to others. So if you are maybe worried about anybody else, maybe general population or any specific person, send them compassion. First self-compassion and then send them compassion. Let your difficulty be reduced. If something difficult is happening, may you find resources. May you find the strength and the courage. Send them these wishes. Breathe in for yourself and breathe out for others. Compassion for me, breathing out compassion for others. Self-compassion is an extremely powerful tool. More you practice anything I'm telling you, more you practice it, more you are going to experience its effect. I want to actually, at this point, I would like to show you one other thing that on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel called To Meditate. You can see it on the screen. And they are, if you go on my channel, I have 6 activities there. All these activities are to help you to feel grounded and to pay attention mindfully. So activity number 1 is self-compassion break. So what I just told you, if you want to do it in a guided way, you can go on the YouTube channel, and I'm going to urge you to subscribe to the channel and then do this with me virtually. Now, let's just take a few seconds, because what we did right now, we did something deep. I hope you experienced it on that level. And if you didn't, it's okay. Practice is what makes it possible to go there really quickly. Like a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi said, Torah, which is the Jewish scripture, so to speak, he said, when you keep saying the words, after some time, you keep putting those words on your heart. And after some time, your heart breaks open and the words fall inside. So one last thing, and I'm going to go over this rather quickly, because I know that you also want to ask me questions. So tip number 3 is develop a daily practice. You may already have a daily practice of yoga. You may already have, maybe some of you follow Art of Living. You may already have a daily practice, but I'm going to suggest you in the morning, before everybody else wakes up, if it is possible for you to get up 15 minutes before everybody else gets up, at least 15 minutes, and then do this. Pay attention to the state of mind you are in. Mindfully, be mindful of what you're feeling. Give yourself a self-compassion break if you need to. And then plan your day. What do you want to achieve during the day? Give yourself those 15 minutes of me time. And if you want a self-compassion break, or you can do any of the activities that I'm suggesting on my YouTube channel. I really urge you to do that. And having this daily practice in the morning, first thing in the morning, is extremely useful. And if you're not able to do it first thing in the morning, then if it is really impossible, then think about what time during the day when you can do it. If you want to plan the day, then of course it's better to do it before you actually start your day. I urge you to do it. I invite you to do it. And another thing I'm going to ask you to do is just real quickly. I have my Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn website is swatidesai.com. To meditate, basically. Instagram is to_meditate, but you should be able to find it. You will get a lot of different things in all these different things that you can go and check. And I am going to put you on my mailing list. If you don't want to be put on my mailing list, write to me on my website, go on my website and contact me and tell me don't send me. I don't send too many things. Typically it is once a month, but I can send you, like different practices and so on. So with that, I would like to end this session and find out if there are any questions. Jashan, you or someone, if you can tell me if there are any questions, that would be great.
So we got one question saying, they're asking that can you share your YouTube page?
YouTube page, again, if I want to share it, I need to be the presenter. That YouTube page I showed you, I am not able to share my screen at the moment. I can tell you to meditate. Go on YouTube and just search Swati Desai to meditate, okay? And then the channel you get, they look for 6 activities. And the 6 activities, okay, I think I got that again, the
Uh,
ability to present. So I'm going to do that. This is what you want to see, right? This is just an image. This is not the actual activity, but I think I have answered the question, right? Was that the question? Just
yeah, she got it, she said.
okay. Okay, all right, great. One other thing I want to mention, I just told you about self-compassion. So self-compassion, there is a standard world-renowned program called Mindful Self-Compassion, which is 8-week long. And I'm a certified teacher of Mindful Self-Compassion. I will be offering it starting from June 13th, which is a Saturday, online. So in the morning from 6:30 to 7:45, let's say 1 hour and 15 minutes, Saturday and Sunday. 8 weekends in the same way. So the reason I'm offering it early in the morning is there are some practices, there is some teaching, different various areas of life. You can learn how to deal with those areas of life by using self-compassion and mindfulness. Beautiful way to begin your morning. And that's why it's early morning, 6:30 Indian Standard Time. So if you want, you can, again, you can, on my Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere, you'll find the post about that class. And in fact, what you can do is you can go on my website and contact me. And then I'll send you all the information about the class. Is there any other question?
Yeah, Swati, we got
Just,
one more question. She's
okay.
asking, how can we practice conviction?
I didn't understand. What is it? I couldn't hear it.
She asked that, can we practice conviction? If yes, then how?
Can we practice conviction?
Yeah.
I would love to actually find out what the person means by practicing conviction. I can just guess, but it would have been really nice to be able to actually talk to this person. That's an interesting question. So practicing conviction, I'll just tell you what I'm thinking about, okay? I hope I'm answering your question. Let's say I have a conviction that mindfulness has a power to reduce my difficulties in life. Let's say that's a conviction. How do I practice that? So obviously, there are certain meditations I can practice, there are certain activities I can do, and so on and so forth. Whenever there is a conviction, a lot of times, okay, first of all, practice makes it perfect, no matter what it is. You have to keep doing it. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Okay, so keep doing it, keep doing it. In the beginning, you will find the results, you will be enchanted by it. Sometimes after the initial honeymoon phase or enchantment phase, sometimes you start doubting it, or sometimes you give up the practice. But that actually is the time to examine, why am I giving up the practice? That's why a teacher actually helps in that specific scenario. And then you reconcile, you clear your doubts, and then you go back to practicing it again. But this time you're more realistic about the way you practice it. So typically these are the 3 phases. But practicing conviction is practice, do it, do it. Have I answered the question? Practicing conviction, whoever asked the question, can you type yes, no, or if there is any other side question around it?
She replied with yes.
Yes, okay. And you can always contact me on my website.
There is another question. Sometimes we know that this is good for us, but we cannot do it with our full conviction
Yes.
due to negativity you have inside.
Yes, yes, that is absolutely true. We
And
know that, that we know a lot of things that are good for us, but how do you actually do it, right? Again, I think I've already kind of answered that question. You do need some amount of self-discipline, yes. I would, so research shows that to develop any new practice, you take minimum 3 weeks and up to 2 months. So different research studies show different things, but typically 6 weeks is supposed to be the time period you take to establish a new practice, to make it into a habit. So any new good practice you want to develop, you know that it is not easy. But if you know that it is going to take me at least 2 months to make it into habit, then at least you know, okay, for 2 months, I will need more self-discipline. And in case on one day, if you're not able to do it, use self-compassion to motivate yourself. Don't be too tough on you. But remember, practice, practice, practice. For first 2 months, you will 6 weeks to 2. As I said, you know, there used to be a belief that it was 3 weeks, and then they said, no, it takes longer. Then it's 6 weeks. Then it's 2 months. So have 2 months in your mind.
Thanks.
And then it will become a habit. Then it will become a habit.
Next question
For
is like,
example, yeah.
okay,
Go ahead.
yeah, how to achieve right balance between right brain and left brain?
How to achieve right balance? Wow, that's a wonderful question. I'll tell you one way I know, and that may be obvious to you: mindfulness. Mindfulness is really about achieving the right balance between right brain and the left brain. You are mostly engineers, so at least, you know, a lot of times people think about engineers as they use the left side of their brain, the math, science, language, and all that, right? Emotions is not necessarily their forte, but that's really not true. Some people may be more emotional. They respond to things with feelings right away. Any decisions they make, it's based on, you know, momentary emotions. Mindfulness teaches you to simply observe your emotions instead of reacting right away. Non-reactivity. Remember, I said non-reactivity. But the wonderful thing about mindfulness is, if let's say you're very rational and you are afraid of practicing mindfulness will make you too much left brain, less emotional, non-reactive, don't worry about it, because at the same time, you're also practicing compassion. And compassion is a way to keep in touch with humanity, keep in touch with feelings. So mindfulness, meditations, and compassion, practice it together. What do I mean by practice? Practice the meditations. The best thing is have a teacher, and you can contact me, or you can go on my YouTube channel and look for tutorials on mindfulness, where I have described different kinds of mindfulness meditations. And get into mindfulness practice. That's really the best way. I can tell you based on my own example, I am pretty much a left brain person. I don't think and I became a psychologist because I did care, but it was more on the rational side. You know, I understood people on the cognitive level. But last 15 years, there have been a market change in the way I process feelings and how I respond to other people's feelings. And you can ask my family to know if what I'm saying is true or not. I hear that from my family all the time. So practice mindfulness at least for 2 months.
Yeah, Swati,
Any other question?
we have one more question from
Yeah.
Suchan. He asked, so you talked about mindfulness, but there are some other activities such as running or working out where we run away from our reality by
Yeah.
playing music. So can we say that mindfulness is not needed for all chores we do?
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that you're right. That's a great question. First of all, we are householders. We are not monks. We are not sitting there meditating mindfully and paying attention to everything mindfully 24/7. So that's what I said in the beginning. My whole thing has been, how do you incorporate mindfulness to your benefit in your daily life? So you will not do each and everything mindfully. Yes, given that. When you're driving, you need to pay attention to the traffic and not, oh my God, you know how I'm experiencing it right now, and so on and so forth. So there are times when you are going to be multitasking. There are times when you may not be mindfully doing things because you need to do it in a certain way and in a hurry. What other thing you said is interesting. You said escaping. So mindfulness is actually not about escaping. However, there may be times when you just want to, even running, 2 minutes of when you are running, pay attention to your muscles and be there at that time. But watching TV, you know, there are activities we do because we want to escape from our whatever is going on, the anxiety and all that. And I have to say, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Even that, say that I need to do that right now. I need to watch TV. I need to run. Be aware of what you're doing. But at some point or the other, also know you will have to come back to whatever difficulty you are experiencing. You can't only keep running away from the escaping. That's just not possible. If we keep escaping at some point or the other in life, it comes back to haunt us. So just know mindfulness is a way to actually deal with unpleasantness and difficulty by facing it, by learning about yourself. But for that, you'll have to go in mindfulness in a slightly deeper way. But yes, mindfulness is very much not about escaping. However, escaping may be necessary for us commoners sometimes, not 100% of the time. And mindfulness, you know, once your brain becomes mindful, whenever you need it, you can switch to mindfulness. When you are experiencing difficulty, you can actually be mindful of it and give yourself self-compassion break. And then think about whatever it is that would be the right action. What is it that you need to do that will be effective, that will be wise, rather than just being on the autopilot? If you feel angry, you can yell, you can scream, you can say things that are very mean, but then later on you may regret it, right? So instead, it may be a good idea to develop mindfulness and then think about what would be more effective than yelling. So
Thank you, Swati. We have one last question. So she's asking about the difference between meditation and mindfulness.
yeah, so mindfulness, as I said, mindfulness is just a philosophy, a way to pay attention, right? Mindfulness is just when you are experiencing something, you can pay attention to that experience with curiosity, non-judgmentality, acceptance, non-reactivity, and simply observing. That way of observing, that way of experiencing the moment, which could mean that you are right now paying attention to the breath, body, feeling, whatever. That is what mindfulness means. Meditation is a way to learn to be mindful, because just because I say, okay, be mindful, you need to have a technique to actually make your brain mindful, to make you understand what it means by experiencing with those 5 characteristics. So meditation is more formal activity. You actually sit down, you close your eyes, you sit with your spinal cord straight, and you decide what is it that you're going to pay attention to, and everything else is outside the door, and you formally, gradually keep bringing your attention back to that activity. So that's what meditation is. Have I answered the question?
Yeah, thank you. Swati, I think we are running out of time. We have one last question. So is there any connection between mindfulness and sleep? Because people sleep to get over anxiety.
People sleep to get over anxiety. Some people cannot sleep because of anxiety. So if you are sleeping, so that could be depression. If it is like sleep, sleep, sleep in order to forget what is going on, it could be depression, whatever it is. What's the connection between sleep and mindfulness? I can't say sleep leads to mindfulness, mindfulness leads to sleep, or anything like that. But I want to say one thing: when you are anxious, and if you are not able to sleep because of feeling anxious, especially at night time, know that our emotional part of our brain, amygdala, the fears and anxiety are more active. And because of that, you will find it very difficult to sleep. So if you know, again, the idea of fact versus interpretation, set it aside, and then pay attention to your breathing, do a mindfulness meditation or self-compassion break, it will help you to sleep. If you are sleeping too much because you are feeling anxious, as a result, maybe depressed, if that's what's happening, you need to talk to somebody. It's hard to just tell you, what you should do right now in order to stop sleeping as much. Be mindful of what's going on with you. What are your typical patterns? If you want to change it, go to a teacher or go to a therapist and work on that. So that's my answer to essentially, like if you want to learn mindfulness, yes, right now these days you have all kinds of virtual possibilities of YouTube channels or apps and all these things. But actually taking a class does make a difference, or working with a teacher does make a difference.
So thank you, Swati. I think we are just on time or a few minutes over. The session is so amazing, and I think for personally for me, it is first time we had a webinar, which is actually a workshop. So thank you for the tips on practicing mindfulness, Swati. Really helpful, and I'm sure it is a great time to start practicing it now. And at least I'm going to do it. It's going to be helpful, not just in this situation, which we are all facing here, but I'm sure it's going to be it's going to help people times ahead. So thank you so much for your wonderful session, Swati, and sparing the time for us.
Yeah. And I really hope that, today was a tip of the iceberg, but all the benefits of mindfulness are really so relevant in today's times. I hope it induces a lot of people to actually learn mindfulness by following and so on. It can be a life-changing experience once you get into it.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of SWE India and SWE Pune affiliate, we just want to present you the certificate of appreciation for the wonderful session you had with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really, I couldn't see anybody, but just the idea of talking to all these women engineers is a good feeling. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jashan, for getting in touch with me about this session.
Thank you, Swati.
Very nice.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Paul. And
thank you, everyone, for participating.
And thank you, Sunaina, for doing the dry run, etc.
Yeah.
With me.
Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Thank you.